Mr. Terry Saka. How are you? Thank you for coming back and talking with me. I've been so excited to talk to you today. And I know that everyone has been excited that you were coming on because I told my platforms and they've been super excited. Welcome back.
Well, that's very kind of everyone. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because people like to know what's behind the scenes and not what they're being told in the mainstream. And I think that's kind of where we have this unique relationship, as I bring in these behind the scene things of what you're seeing in visions and what you're being told. It's interesting to see the collaboration.
It is. And for anybody, if this is your first time meeting Terry, just briefly, Terry is a really great friend of Sean and I's and the family. Hopefully we'll get to meet one day, but he has 5 licenses. He is the owner of Cornerstone Asset Metals, and we have been buying from Terry for a good 6 years. He really takes care of us in that area. And he is my go-to when I have questions about the markets, when I'm reading things, prophetic things. I think that's why we work so well together, because I can see things prophetically. And then he has this underpinning of the technical stuff and the headlines and what's really going on behind the scenes. So this is Terry. So what, Terry, in the world, I'm just going to let you have it. What in the world is happening? Like, just what's going on with the tariff? Good, bad? What do you feel? Where do you think we're going? What do you think China is about to do? Because they're digging their heels in.
Well, this is a big one with China. Now, the tariffs go across the board. So we're talking every country. Now, the reason they have to tariff every country is because if they tariff one country, they'll run goods through the country that's not with tariffs. So they have no choice but to tariff everyone, because then there's no backdoor way to get to the U.S. economy. The bottom line, anyone who is against the tariffs, and this is my opinion, of course, but there's a bribe or some kind of incentive to a supplier or a relationship, because you should not be against the tariff. The bottom line is tariffs are the way the U.S. Constitution was supposed to raise income. It was pure and simple. It was all about trade, and we were to generate income this way. We're not supposed to have personal income tax, and I think that's why they're discussing eliminating a lot of personal income tax below a certain threshold, because it's not necessary. And for decades, the United States has been taken advantage of. And I think it was the globalist vision where they get the whole world to do what the globalist power elites want them to do. And then America had to take a back seat. And we all know this, especially, me being born and raised from Detroit. I get it more than probably a lot of the people because of the automotive industry. But we have been marginalized. Our manufacturing, our ability to produce goods and service and export to the world has been drastically marginalized. And who does that impact? The middle class, we the people. I mean, the vast majority of even small business now, especially with the internet, being able to export outside the country. So because we've been marginalized, we've lost most of our manufacturing, our jobs, our incomes are pathetic, and we're not able to maintain a standard of living to the inflation that has been brought upon us by the trillions upon trillions that have been spent. And the best example, which blows me away, is what Doge is uncovering. And the only reason they're protesting, by the way, for everyone to know, they're protesting because their dark money that they were money laundering from us, the taxpayers, was going to organizations, let's say the USDA, and they get billions for specific work for USDA for what they do. But the money would go to NGOs, these non-governmental organizations that are supposed nonprofits that should be doing work for the organization, but they don't. Most of these nonprofits were actually left-wing activist groups, or is what you probably heard a line on Obama's rent-a riots. And this is who's funding or was funding a lot of the activism that was changing all of our cultural ideological beliefs, destroying our family, trying to destroy our church, trying to destroy our way of capitalism and economy. These are down, I would say, behind the scenes, Marxist, Bolshevik, socialist types. Most of the people involved haven't a clue what they're talking about. And I find that the arguments that they have are not even grounded in reality. So we're dealing with a very large group of people that just don't have a grip of reality. They literally found $4 trillion that don't even have a subject line of where the money went to. They're finding trillions that are sent overseas. No subject line. Think about the trillions that we could have, all that money. Now, where's it going? I say money laundering to NGOs to fight the cause globally of freedom, family, free speech, capitalism. It's going to these groups worldwide, not just the United States. It's our taxpayer money that's doing it. And they were funneling it all through these organizations. We're talking trillions. Now, think of those trillions in the United States, what we could do. Yeah. Think of the communities, waterworks, freeways, bridges, the electrical grid, which is pathetic in the United States. Education, I mean, the help and extensive help to welfare and underprivileged programs where we can get in educational programs to get people skilled so we can have our own manufacturing base. Trillions of dollars would go so far, it's not even funny. Literally hundreds of billions could go to almost every state, it seems like, with the fraud and waste and abuse we're finding. So this is the essence of what we're starting with. This is what was going on behind the scene in our country. Trump comes in and says, okay, number one, we're going to clean up the house. Stop this fraud, waste, and abuse. And a lot of people just hear fraud, waste, and abuse, but you have to understand it's money laundering to NGOs that are doing the bid of the dark side. I'm talking Luciferian darkness, things that are way off the queer agenda, destroying our families, destroying our children, destroying our ideology, our church. These organizations are no good. You want to be that way, fine, but raise your own money. Our taxpayer money should be going to we the people. The hundreds of billions that were going to illegal aliens. Sorry, all due respect, come through the port legally, and then we'll go through these programs and maybe help you out if you're a good citizen and a contributor. Fine, come on in. That's what America is. Hundreds of billions going in that direction. 70% of them were ending up on welfare systems. Think of that money going to you, your community, your children, your health care. Think about our health care costs. A lot of it is because we're wasting so much in the fraud department to illegals, foreigners, and places that we shouldn't be spending money in the first place. So this is where it started. This uncovering is huge. So if people are against the tariffs, they're not addressing the beginning of the fraud, waste, and abuse. So the fraud, waste, and abuse isn't just 100 million here and there. Yeah. It's deep. And that is money that was for we the people. We wouldn't have the inflation we have right now if we didn't spend the money so recklessly. If we did this as a family, we would be bankrupt.
Yeah, it is. It's infuriating, Terry, as a business owner, and you're one too. And let me just tell you guys who aren't on our side, it's infuriating because we have to pay payroll tax on our employees. We have to meet the Medicare and all of the government, whatever taken out of the employee checks. And when you find out that all of this billions and trillions of dollars is going to fraud, and it's sucking the life out of your business. It's sucking the life out of your employees. You know, the more money you make in the system or in, you know, business, you don't get money back. So the ones that get the money back every year, maybe they don't look at it. And so they're the ones going, he's doing this and he's doing that. And, you know, why is our food costs going up? It's the ones that are the capitalists that are like, wait a second, they are bleeding us to death. And the joke is on you. And we're telling you they're bleeding us to death to do these fraudulent things. We have bigger things and fish to fry than the tariffs. Like it's totally different when you step into like the employee to the capitalist to see these things for what they are. And Terry, it drives me crazy that they don't see it. Like it bothers me, but at the same time, you can't make someone see what they can't see. And honestly, they don't know what they don't know, which is why we're talking.
Well, it's a narrative. And I think it's because the media and the narrative, the media is all Rockefeller media, I call it. It's deceptive.
Yeah.
It is not to give you the line of truth. It's to deceive you away. Narrow is the path that leads to life, right? If you find it, wide the path that leads to destruction. They're deceiving us in the media. So they don't want us knowing. So this fraud, waste, and abuse is way bigger than people realize because, as you're saying, small business.
Yeah.
We're impacted by regulation. We're impacted by taxes 5 to 10 times on the same dollar.
Yeah.
That can all stop if we had a solid foundation, a true economically managed government. If we did it right, which I think this is where blockchain comes in, which I can't imagine the government would ever do because they would be accountable. There's a reason why toilet seats in the military would cost $40,000.
Right.
They're not $40,000 toilet seats. They're funneling that money to black op projects and other things around the world. They're doing it across the board in every government agency, though. So first we have to address that and stop that, because that was the core of why we have massive inflation, why rents are so high, why food and goods are so high, regardless of what Trump's trying to spin in the media. Oh, inflation stopped. Who's kidding who?
Yeah.
Everything still costs more money, period, because the dollar has been diluted and destroyed. And so then it comes into tariffs. Why is he doing tariffs? Well, he has to, because that's how we generate income, stop charging and bleeding dry the American people, because constitutionally we weren't supposed to do that in the first place. And we had unfair trade. And a lot of people don't realize all these countries, Canada, especially Canada, I don't know, they're crying. I can't even believe it, because we give them hundreds of billions a year. Without us, you don't survive.
Right.
And so you have to know the truth, because the truth sets you free, number one, but it allows you to manage properly and then build a strong foundation going forward. But Canada will have, now it's select products, it's not across the board, but all of them, Europe, all these countries, they'll have tariffs on certain products. So Canada would charge us 75% tax or a tariff on a product, but then they were allowed to bring that product to us for free. Does that sound fair? Here, I'm going to charge you $75 more, but you can give it to me for nothing. It just makes no sense.
They were all doing it, weren't they? All these countries were doing it to the US, and we were just letting it happen.
Well, and that was the globalism of it. And so they were trying to destroy this nation ability to be powerful and wealthy and great. And they did. They got away with it to some extent, and it's ended. This is a big deal. World Health Organization, World Economic Forum, the Great Reset just got reset. So, the Great Reset just got reset because it stopped. They were taking advantage of us by putting taxes and tariffs on goods, but then they wanted to ship it to us for free. Well, that's not fair trade. That's not even remotely fair. And so what Trump's saying is, let's make it equal. How about no tariffs at all? You buy our goods, we buy your goods, no tax on any of it. But the plan, it's important to understand the plan. The plan was to destroy the United States' ability to produce wealth and be in power. We already have the most powerful military in the world. If our middle class and people were wealthy too, we dominate the world. The dollar dominates. And so by doing the tariffs, they were basically taking our wealth and making themselves wealthy, enriching themselves. I get it. It's trade. If we're going to make a bad trade deal, I don't blame them for doing it. We accepted it. But what we were doing is making all of these other nations wealthy on the backs of we, the people. Trump came in and said, no more. We are now going to make our people as wealthy as they were supposed to be. Now, the slight problem we have in these couple decades here, we've dumbed down our society. And so we have literally a cultural generational, I think maybe even 2 generations worth, that are very bright. I mean, men can't use tools anymore.
No.
People don't have skills. They're lazy. They'd rather sit on the couch, smoke pot, play a video game.
They don't have a trade, like nothing. Yeah.
They have no trade, no skill set. They don't read books. And so we are going to struggle a little bit when it comes to building a manufacturing base because we're going to need to train and educate. I do believe there's plenty of people. I mean, we have 100 million people in this country that are not working. 100 million. Train them up. There are plenty, I'm sure, who, given the right opportunity and training and education, would gladly take a manufacturing job for $45 an hour or more.
Oh, yeah.
They would love it. They would love to earn. People inherently want to earn a living and a good living so then they can prosper, take vacations, and enjoy some of the finer things of life. So we do have to train up our society, but 100 million people not working tells you everything. But Trump is bringing it back. So by doing the tariffs, it's forcing these countries to get rid of this unfair trade. And what it will do is absolutely enrich the United States people. And when they say, oh, it's a tax on the Americans because that product's going to be more expensive, only in the short term. That's why we have to have patience. Good. Let it be, because now I'm not buying that product. I'm going to buy one that's made in the United States.
America. Yeah, I was reading up about this, just trying to get as much education as I could about the past and what our forefathers did with tariffs. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like, didn't this start with George Washington? Like, he started doing the tariffs to fund this new country. He didn't take it from the, evolving colonies. It was always like an external IRS or, external Internal Revenue Service.
Well, it's constitutional, Lauren. I mean, I wish I should have looked it up. I have a constitutional copy somewhere, but literally our income was always, and there's another word, not just tariff, it's just missing my head right now. But constitutionally, we were always, from George Washington, like you said, supposed to earn the wealth by developing goods and service, trading worldwide, and then earning income off of that.
And
that's how we were supposed to survive.
Yeah. And wasn't it because that's how they were treated in Britain? I mean, they were trying to get away from that and religious freedom. And the tariffs were like normal. And I think the founding fathers were doing that consistently. And actually, the North and the South started tariffing each other. But it never came from the people. And so it's odd because people don't know history and they don't know anything about this, that this is how it should operate. Like, the American people should not be funding our nation. Other nations who want a piece of us should be funding us. And then we should be buying our own stuff, right? Like making stuff and all that. I'm not saying, and I don't think you're saying either, that exporting and importing is bad. It's not. It's nice to get other things.
Oh, it's great.
Cultures. Yeah. It funds, economies. Yes. But you're right. It should be, our government should be funded by the tariffs, right? Mostly.
Right. And not only that, exporting and importing is the essence of all humanity. Trade goes back to when we were literally cave people. Hey, I have this rock, give me that fish. Or, trade is everything. And so it's about trading where you win and I win. And for decades, America was losing. Not only did we lose our manufacturing base, lose the intellect, and lose the people, the middle class people's ability to perform good service and manufacturing and ideas and small business. I mean, 72% of employment comes from small business. And we can export these small business ideas worldwide, especially now with Instagram and things on the internet. You could sell your product worldwide. They destroyed that part of it. And they did it to enrich the rest of the world. And some people say, well, it was to expand America. Well, it didn't. It actually destroyed America because we were now printing trillions to just stay in power and alive, destroying our financial wealth. And so we're essentially bankrupt as a nation. But Trump has a phenomenal plan. Yeah. So I go back to, if you're against tariffs, you just don't understand. Because at the end of the day, it goes away. And these countries will agree, yep, no, and they will buy our products. Look at the trillions that are being committed to invest in the United States to build manufacturing here now.
Yeah.
because they don't want to deal with a tariff. So if we have patience, soon there are going to be job offerings like crazy and well-paying jobs. Now, we have an inflation problem. So we do need to stop the inflation by strengthening the dollar, lowering our debt, and stopping the bleeding on the excessive budget in order to make the money we're earning buy something. So we have to get it to where our buying power is strong again. The problem is we can't really go backwards. So where we're at now in pricing, deflation doesn't work, and there will be some extent, there will be deflation, but we can't go back. So where we are now in prices will probably remain there, but what we will do is cap it and keep it from rising unless we get a lot of production in one area and there becomes an excess, only because the dollar isn't really worth anything. So what we need to do is destroy the debt that we have, eliminate the debt, we could eliminate it if we do certain things, especially with crypto, but really bring down this debt in our obligation. I mean, we're 100 trillion plus in just obligations alone going forward, Social Security, Medicare. We need to tamper all of that, but more importantly, create income. A lot of income. So $5 million gold cards, brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Tariffs, bring money in that way, brilliant idea. Fraud, waste, and abuse, slash it down. We're spending $4+ trillion a year. I bet we could spend 2.5 and still do the same thing. Get rid of all the money laundering to these activist ideological groups and the rent-a-mobs and so forth. Get rid of all of that.
Yeah.
Political campaigns that are being funded because money was going from government organizations, your taxpayer money going to a government organization, to an NGO, nonprofit. Nonprofit then donates to the political candidate, usually Democrats. And that's how the Democrat machine was running. Yeah. That's why they're protesting. They're losing all of their money. They wouldn't survive if they don't get your taxpayer money. But how illegal is that?
So corrupt. Right?
But there's no government oversight on nonprofits. And so this is where the loophole came in. Democrats happened to have found it out and they exploited it. They almost pulled it off. But Trump came in and put a just nuclear device on this stuff. And now here we are with tariffs doing good. It will bring short-term pain for sure.
Yeah.
But then that rolls us into where we're at now with the markets.
Yeah, talk
and then
about
the markets
that
are correcting. Pain. Yeah, and so even today, the markets I think bounced back up almost 1,000 points. But I'd be very careful, folks. Yeah. That's probably what we call a dead cat bounce.
Can I just say this? Your customers are the ones that took the warning and they rolled over and hedged themselves in these silver-backed, IRAs. You deal with this all day long. They are sitting so happy. And unfortunately, we have the ones that are stuck in these 401ks, not looking too good today. And like you said, I'm kind of with you. I think we've got more blood in the streets before this gets a little better. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, and I think that goes to the tariff, because what's really interesting behind the scene, the hedge funds have been really keeping the markets alive. Mm-hmm. These last few years, it literally has been nothing but money printing. It's not real. I mean, retail's put money, retail's supporting the market. The foreigners have been supporting the market, but it's not real. The hedge funds have been really keeping the markets up, but they've been really over leveraged. So if there's a systemic major collapse, 40-50%, these hedge funds are going to need a mega $1 trillion bailout.
Let me
because
ask you this.
They're the ones keeping this system afloat.
Let me see where I wrote it. Because you brought up hedge funds and I wrote it down today because I read it. Let's see. Something about the hedge funds are liquidating a lot of their stocks that aren't performing well. And I was just wondering if you knew, what are they doing with that? Do you know anything about that?
Well, they're trying to, because what's happening is they're so over leveraged.
Okay.
They're trying to clean up the books. Because if the market continues to drop, which I say the probability of a market going down 40% is extremely real. That's why this dead cat bounce I wouldn't trust.
Yeah.
Because we could easily go down 40% total. We almost went 20% down. It could easily come down another 20. And what it will do is it triggers margin calls for all of these hedge funds.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
See what I mean? And so when these margin calls come in, even the guy that owns the Bitcoin, Boom, you owe $100 million on this margin loan. Whoops. They got to sell assets
Yeah.
to then pay for the margin calls. That's why gold and silver got sold off to a bit at the high, is because they were taking the profits and paying off margin debt. They're in trouble. So the hedge funds not only will need $1 trillion bailout, which is not possible, but they're the ones keeping it afloat. And how we know this is more orchestrated, even though we needed a cleaning in the market. The price to earnings ratio was just out of whack. None of it made sense. It was all because of money printing. And then the hedge funds and banks were taking the printed money and leveraging it into the market. So it's all been fake. It hasn't been economic production. It hasn't been generating wealth and economy. It just hasn't. It's been money printing. And why gold will continue to march towards 5,000 and silver towards 100. It's just going to.
Yeah.
But how we know this particular timing of the crash coincided with tariffs. Did you notice that?
I did notice. And I wanted to know if you think prophetically, I'm just going to put it on this track as well. We're running parallel. The Kim Clements prophecy about the Dow dropping to 20,000. Do you think this could be, in your opinion, the tariff, the China backlash could, because we dipped, and like you said, this could be a dead cat bounce and we could go further. Is this possible?
If it went that far, you would see margin calls on those hedge funds, and the bailout to the hedge funds and financials would be trillions. I mean, you're talking. So if we are to see now, my line in the sand was probably around 32,000 on the Dow.
Okay.
That was about 40%. If it went more than even 40 is going to cause some serious problems in the margin call. But if it goes below 32 to 20, it is definitely reasonable. That would be an epic worldwide sell-off. And what would end up happening is the whole system would start to collapse, which would usher in at a fast pace the great reset idea and the whole digital economy, the stable coin and everything else we're talking about. So if they're planning that this is the time, because we all know that they're trying to usher in the great reset. They just needed a reason. Well, they used Trump to do it. And the reason I say the timing was interesting, look at the repo market. This is repurchasing agreements. It's how the banks, they go and borrow money from the Fed. It's overnight and it gets complicated. So we'll get into the technical of it. But this time around, the repo market is like crickets. And now what that means in the fall of 19, before the pandemic hit, hundreds and hundreds of billions were hitting the repo market, meaning the banks were in really deep trouble. We were on the verge of a full down economic meltdown in 2019, in the fall of 2019. And then conveniently, the pandemic showed up.
Oh, right.
So I believe the pandemic showed up because it gave the ability for governments to print wildly. Like we printed 16 trillion during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Wildly, in order to secretly bail out the banking system. The repo market was going nuts. I was reporting on it like there's 100 billion today, 200 billion today. This day, repo, quiet.
What?
Yeah. So the banks aren't in a panic mode, and yet it's quiet. I find that very, very interesting. It's almost as if this is an orchestrated sell-off.
To blame on him.
I
knew it. Yes.
It's fascinating stuff because the repo is a big indicator. That's the canary in the coal mine. And so what's interesting about, kind of transition over towards silver in this particular area, this is orchestrated. They could be using this. They could, as you said, take it not only down to that 32, but if they go beyond that, it is going to wipe out some stuff. It could make Trump tragically unpopular. And then we go into the midterms and just get destroyed.
Yeah.
I don't know. Trump's a lot smarter than that. So I don't think they're going to be able to pull that off. But if they did, we would introduce the Great Reset real quick, and why gold and silver still is going to be so valuable, because behind the scene, there is a major silver supply problem. Yeah. I'm talking major. If people realized what was happening between London, the United States, COMEX, where the supply is coming from. It's unbelievable. They're draining. The East is draining the exchanges. They're taking the physical gold and physical silver, and they're trying to blame tariffs. Oh, they're getting the gold and silver to America to avoid. It has nothing to do with it. There is a scramble behind the scenes for the actual physical silver in the wholesale, in institutional, and sovereign wealth area, as well as gold. The gold silver ratio is how many silver ounces to 1 ounce of gold is like 101. It's ridiculously out of whack. It should be like 10 to 1. So that would put silver right now at like $300. That's why I say silver is going to be 150 to 200 minimum. But because this ratio is the manipulation of the market, that average historically has been 16 to 1. But my colleagues say before this is over, it'll go 10 to 1. And if gold's 3,000 or 5,000, silver could easily be $400, $500.
Oh my gosh, why would you not take any of your old system money and put it in and roll it over? Because the argument
they don't see that big picture, Lauren. That's why.
They don't. And they also don't like the headache of it, right? And they also, to them, they're like, well, I can't take it out because it's going to penalize, but they don't realize that they can roll over. And it's just, I think it's just them not understanding, like you said, they're not understanding the big picture. And so therefore they don't want the headache, but at the same time, they're watching it just deplete, like in the last just 48 hours. What if, so you're just, all this download is coming in. You're saying your line was like 32 for the Dow. And we have an old prophecy from Kim Clements that said he saw somewhere in the 20s. I'm wondering, is because they're playing with fire and they're trying to blame it on him, they do crash it to 32. That is still pretty significant. And that's huge.
That's 40% right there.
Yeah. And then later on down, and causes them to teeter during the midterms because now everyone hates Trump. And then we get further into the fall. And because they tried to play with fire, because they tried to mess with him, we now have a epic, huge failure on our hands. It could take one catastrophic event from China or one attack, and then we go down to that 20 and we're all wiped out because of something they tried to do here in April with the tariffs.
I absolutely would back that up. I think, when you're playing with fire, you can't control the outcome. Just like Vietnam War. We caused Vietnam War. People don't realize this. The Iraq War. I mean, all of these things, Ukraine, we started it. We start these wars by psychological stuff and other means, but we start the wars and then it backfires on us. No different than the church. I will, because it's really fun, but do your homework. But because, you'll get it. But back in the day, this goes way back, but even the Catholic Church, and I had some pretty interesting, let me just say, deep people that told me how the Catholic Church began. But it was about that the Pope wanted to be in Jerusalem with the Vatican. And he had a problem because he had the Jews and the disciple Christians. And so they made up this thing where, okay, he's in a cave and we're going to go from the cave and we're going to, because back then Arabs were Catholic, a lot of them. And so we're going to do this. And then all of a sudden the Quran is developed and they were able to create an army, and they wanted to create that army, the Catholic Church did, to go after the Jews and the disciple Christians. Whoops, that backfired to this day, right? Because not only did it not work, but then they turned around and decided to stand on their own. And now they are against both of us. So that is a very real story. The cardinal that was talking about that in a very secret video ended up mysteriously dying. So all I know is we've started a lot of things like this, and it always backfires. So what you just said is very plausible, because they're messing with fire, and one event could cascade that from 32 to 20, but you're talking absolute chaos. But I believe they want that chaos, in my opinion. And so when you talk about the gold and silver, which is the real money, and the LBMA, which is over in London, they are being so drained by the East for supply, because silver is so valuable for just about everything being done electronically, and electric vehicles take 30 kilograms of silver. In the first 2 months of this year, the LBMA was drained 105 million ounces of physical silver.
Wow.
The COMEX, which is here in the United States, barely has 2 weeks of eligible physical silver.
Right.
I'm telling people if they really understood the value of real money, God said, hey, guy 2-8, the gold is mine, the silver is mine. They would understand as silver marches towards that 150, 200 over the next 3-5 years and beyond, you're talking, exponential growth. It's not about the growth. It's about the protection of the destruction of the currency that you're holding. So this stock market's coming down, and now I don't buy it. It could. I mean, they just say the word, and the leveraged hedge funds go back into the market. Liquidity's not there.
Yeah.
We're not printing money to give it to them. So I'm not sure besides leverage what they're doing, but they're bouncing this up probably to fake out retail, if anything.
Yeah.
It could easily be a dead cat and we're going right back down. And if we start going back down, I think a true cleansing will be about that 40% mark, which is 32,000. But then you bring in China, like you're saying, and here's where this gets where you may be closer than not. China is worse off right now. And this is not good for China because they have so many people. They've expanded so much. They're not used to this. They're worse off right now than Japan was in the 90s with inflation.
Oh, no.
And that's not good. If people remember Japan in the 90s, they had a real dark time. If China goes into that level of inflation and their economy drops, they're going to be in trouble.
You know what worries me about that, Terry?
What will they do?
You just saying that makes me worry about I didn't know they were in that much trouble. But if that's the case, you know what every single country does when they're in trouble, they go to war. And yes. I'm really concerned if that, like you're saying, which I believe you, I didn't know that it was that bad. Who's to say they wouldn't attack, just to pump themselves up, because every nation does that.
Well, that's all it would take, though, as you were saying. Maybe they decide to go after Taiwan or cause a conflict because they came out and said that they're going to fight this tariff tooth and nail.
Yes.
Even though they're the biggest violators of tariffs. It's like,
ever.
Listen, you're the largest, trading partner or exporter right now, and you're taking advantage of the deficit. Now, where a lot of tariffs came in isn't so much about the tax and the tariff. It was about trade imbalance. So from China's point of view, under Biden, we were $1 trillion a year imbalanced between China. So China was making $1 trillion off the United States annually. That was the highest I've ever seen a trade imbalance. Trump is trying to say these trade imbalances need to come down. No $1 trillion. It needs to be maybe zero or 100 billion, but we don't have these. So for China to lose that trade imbalance would be economically devastating to them. And so now they're coming out and saying, no, we're fighting this. We're not going to. China's a different animal completely.
Yeah.
But I believe Trump has the upper hand because if China tries to fight this, they can lose way more than we can lose. But in the short term, people better get ready.
Yeah. We
can have some pain through this year. But I also believe this is also what rolls in the potential of the Great Reset accelerating. Stable coins coming in with regulation. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, that's where possibly the XRP, XLM come into play. As they start tokenizing or blockchaining all these debts. As Larry Fink said, he would tokenize every stock and bond.
Yeah.
And when you start thinking of everyone across the board, from Fidelity to Vanguard, State Street, all of them, Barclays, you name it, and they all start tokenizing assets. Of course, then the cryptos. And I think the cryptos have the ability to create hundreds of trillions of dollars of wealth.
Yeah.
Along with cutting fraud, waste, and abuse. Doing the Doge card, the $5 million gold card. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was projected to raise $1 trillion, if not a few trillion dollars doing that for immigration. Now that's smart. Yeah. Immigration, bring in people that contribute with knowledge that'll start businesses and give them brilliant stuff.
Bring in more Elon Musk.
Bring in more Elon Musk. And so if Trump were to, here's where it gets sticky. He's not, and I don't even trust Republicans, but if he were to get his way, we truly would be an unbelievably powerfully wealthy nation. Yeah. We will clean up the fraud, waste, and abuse. We'll get rid of those people in this country that don't belong here, that are not productive or don't want to be American citizens. shut down this communist Bolshevik garbage on the left, and then bring in strong economies and power and manufacturing to we the people, and then retool the global trade, redesign the whole entire global trade. Now, what they'll do is harm a lot of these countries who are getting wealthy off of us, but it'll still be better than nothing because everybody needs America. They just do. We are the consumers of the world. And so they want us. So are they willing or can they go through the short-term pain? And I say no. So China could be the wild card because if they were to go to a zero trade balance, they're in deep trouble.
What do you think about this headline? Do you think this is a fluff piece or like a FOMO piece? And I read this on one of my lives today, that China is discussing whether to start dumping U.S. treasuries, basically dumping our debt, and Japan as well. So how would that look on top of all of this going on if they decided that that's how they're going to retaliate by digging their heels in and they dump it? Do you think that would cause an act of war from Trump's side? Like, what do you think would happen to the markets? Yeah.
Well, Japan has already dumped about, I'd say, 200 billion in treasuries, and they bought gold with it.
Oh.
And so Japan had no choice. And China, that is the ultimate canary. And that's where this gets really deep. We probably don't have time to do this all in one session, but if we were to tokenize onto blockchains our treasury debt, because right now Tether owns a massive amount of U.S. Treasury debt. I don't even buy Tether's even legit, to be honest. But let's go to XRP. Let's say XRP starts tokenizing Treasury debt. It gives the Treasury a place to put the bonds and debt. So if we could see a double whammy here, where if China were to start dumping, nobody's buying our treasuries.
No.
Right now, we forced every bank. That's why the banks are in so much trouble, is they're holding massive amounts of U.S. treasuries. You're holding treasuries right now in your money market account. You got to read the fine print. They did it about 5 years ago. All money market accounts are no longer cash. They're actually 98% U.S. treasuries. So they've already invaded the money market accounts to the tune of 3 trillion plus. They're going after every source of money to buy treasuries. So even governmental agencies, let's say Social Security, that gets X amount of a budget, tens of billions of that goes to buy U.S. treasuries. Every government agency is buying U.S. treasuries. Our banks are forced to buy U.S. treasuries. Nobody's buying them because our debt is just enormous.
So basically what you're saying is we're cannibalizing ourselves.
We are cannibalizing ourselves. Yeah. We're printing a bond and then somehow eating our own bond. It's really weird. It's kind of hard to explain because it's a whole circle. Like we're printing a dollar and putting it out there, but then we're buying back the same dollar. It just doesn't make any sense.
It's so scary. Like I can't even understand why anybody would want to be in the dollar and then the 401ks and these markets. Like it's so belligerently grotesque.
Well, that's just, I have to have only just a compassion for understanding that they just don't get it or believe it. There's a normalcy bias out there of, smart people, intelligent people in denial because they don't believe it. They just can't believe this is happening. Don't want to, haven't seen it before. But we are in serious, serious trouble, dead broke. And we must do what we're doing, not just through Doge, through tariffs. But then we have the U.S. Treasury debt issue. If we tokenize debt, that could help. If we gold back our debt like they're talking about, that's going to help. Mm-hmm. That's why gold will easily keep rising 5, then 10,000. But then you have China, that wild card. If they start dumping the U.S. Treasuries, here's where it gets really ugly. If they depeg from the dollar.
Oh my gosh. I think
so
Trump
they say I'm dumping treasuries and I'm depegging from the dollar. Boom. The whole thing just literally melted down and it's gone. Like it will be overnight. Now, are they willing to do it? I say China, if anyone would be them. Oh. They're communists. So if their people suffer, look at North Korea. They're starving. These people don't care. These communists don't care. But that's a pretty big thing to do. If they pulled that off, you're talking about almost a world war at that point.
Well, I did hear Trump say one time, because a reporter asked him that way back, and Trump said, look, if they want to do that, I'm going to consider that an act of war. So he did say that. So maybe they don't even, like you said, maybe they don't even care that would cause war, because they're already in such financial trouble that would be good if they went to war. See, like you said, this is such a wild card. Like, I have no idea where this is going to go. Like, I don't. And
it would be crazy if they did it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about like the worst scenario out there. If prevailing heads hold, you stop the dumb Ukraine war, get everyone back to the table. Let's build a free trade zone globally. Let's all start producing products, goods, and services, selling it to each other, and let's all start building wealth together. Done. Now we got peace in the world and we're all prospering. The problem is
too much greed.
Yeah. I mean, people don't have a way of doing that. Like, they just, for whatever reason, we just want to destroy each other.
Yeah.
You got communists on one side. You have the Europeans who are just lunatics.
And they're failing. The Euro's always failed. It's never
failing.
worked.
Oh, they're just horrifying over there. I mean, what they're doing to my home country in Ireland, I mean, with all these illegals, and they're destroying their culture, the laws, the hate speech laws. They're insane over in Europe. They're not survivable. And then they're the ones not wanting peace in Ukraine. It's like they want this war. It's weird. And if we were to stop it, as Trump, I think Trump's ideal would be everyone come to the table. Let's stop all this war. Let's stop all of this. Get to free trade and start producing wealth for everybody. Done. It's over. I don't know if that's the way it's going to go down, though. And here's where my question is for everyone. Are you so sure it's going down that way? I mean, I think it will or can. But if it doesn't, and like you say, if they start dumping treasuries or they depeg or they escalate more, because as I said, the repo market's quiet. You got the hedge funds in leverage. Like, why this timing was awfully, this market should have corrected 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Now tariffs are announced and boom, the market starts correcting. And so just know on a trigger notice, your day can change real quick. And are you going to be all in on a market, which retail is? And I'm telling you, all retail who are in the stock market, you're being sold from the institutions who are selling. Yeah. Okay. I was trained at AG Edwards, and I can tell you this, like if I showed you the cycle that they showed us, they sell into you during these moments, and you're the ones going to get caught holding the bag every time. That's how they do it. And then they'll come back in when they're in cash, and they'll buy down at the bottom of the market after you've lost over half of your retirement account. Right now, it's a fire sale with this correction in gold and silver. And yet it's bouncing back strong. And I know it is because of what I told you about the ratio and about the draining of the LBMA. If you knew what was going on behind the scenes in the supply chain, India and China scrambling to buy the physical silver and take it away from the West. If you saw what I have to deal with in the supply side, you would be getting your hands on it, because having it physically in an IRA in a depository or a private depository or at home is paramount. And if you buy paper, forget it, because a lot of that paper is probably going to default. And so we're at a really still weird time. And I think a lot of us, Lauren, in our side of the world, they're hopeful. Yeah. They're like, Trump's in, everything's okay. And I'm like, be aware. Trump has told us a dozen times there will be short-term pain.
Yeah.
He knows what's getting ready to come. And we're going to go through it. Now, his goal, if I have to guess, that's why they're doing it right this minute. Get this out of the way right now. Get this thing all resolved by the end of this year, maybe by spring of next year. Get this thing booming back in the right direction so they can win the midterm elections.
Yeah.
Because if it's still happening by next year, the Republicans could be in trouble. Americans, I don't have a whole lot of confidence in, because if they vote Democrat, we're done as a nation, period. They can't single issue. They have to see the big picture. If Trump were to get 4 years of time to do what he wants to do, we will absolutely, or could absolutely, explode in wealth and opportunity. manufacturing coming back, jobs coming back, investment, stop the corruption that's going to these NGOs, going to these ideologues and ideological platforms for protest and all of them people, and then get money into the community, start redeveloping communities, waterworks, electric grids, roads, put people to work, community programs for education, to then start small businesses, change the tax code so small businesses can export, change the tax code so anyone under 150,000 doesn't pay tax, although that's not fair. So those of us that make more pay tax. Come on.
Yeah.
But the point is, and I also, just on a side note to that, 150,000, no one paying tax. Yeah, that's great. And I think everybody would be happy. But what makes me nervous about the idea is they no longer have skin in the game. Mm-mm. And if you don't have skin in the game, it'll be real easy for you to slip and start voting for the socialists or the Democrats because you don't get it. You have to have some form of skin in the game.
Sacrifice. You got to have some form of sacrifice.
Some form of sacrifice.
Somewhere.
Yes. If it's just given to you, that could cause a big problem. So on one hand, I think everyone because even a middle-class person, if you're making 50,000, you're paying 12,000 in tax. That's an extra $1,000 a month. That is amazing.
Yeah.
So if they do that, that could really propel Republicans way beyond. But if we can get 4 years and we can pull off the tariffs, pull off bringing manufacturing back, stop the global elites and the World Economic Forum from this great reset, literally reset the great reset, and then institute the blockchain, the crypto capital of the world, start tokenizing assets, stocks, bonds, and treasuries. The amount of wealth that it could be generated is unbelievable. We could pay off our debt.
Yeah.
And it can be done. And this is reasonable. But we're in a battle, and we do, as you said, I think is it. The wild card will be China. I think everybody else will fall in line. France, they like to mouth off, but France is just a pathetic nation. And I'm half French or something like that. I mean, grandma goes back 400 years. I can bag on them, but that country, unbelievable, falling apart. But beyond that,
Macron is such a weirdo. Like, he is the weirdest. The weirdest, I don't even know what that guy. Oh, he gives me the
Europeans in general, the laws they're passing, the hate speech laws and what they're doing. Germany, you would think the Germans would know what Nazism is in their countries right now is like Nazis. It's like weird, but they'll fall in because they have no choice. China's the one who I think can't. If they were to lose out on that $1 trillion trade imbalance, they're not going to make it because, like I said, they're in worse inflation now than Japan in the 90s. They're in deep trouble. And so there's something with China. I don't know. Now, China, if they were smart, make a trade deal and then fight your way out of it. Work hard for the next 5-7 years and get out of the debt load and the issues you have. But like you said, when countries get like this, they have a tendency to go to war.
And I think you're right when you said they'll probably go after Taiwan. When you said that pinged me. I was like, well, they're such bullies. I don't see them backing down. And instead, they'll just go stage left. They'll just go, oh, well, we'll just go over here and invade Taiwan then.
Can you imagine if they invaded Taiwan, started dumping some treasuries, or if they came out and then if we go to war, they'll just say we're depegging from the dollar. You depeg from, I'm telling you, depeg from the dollar, you will pray to God you own gold and silver.
I know. I think
because
this is a good
paper
strategy.
Dollar will be in trouble.
And yes, I believe there's multimillionaires that will be made out of this tariffs that are happening now and what's coming with whatever will happen. Because we just talked about it. It could just be one single event takes this whole thing down. And if you play this right, you could be so far up top. Everybody, like, instead of it pulling you down, the Titanic pulling you down, it slingshots you up instead. But I think that's the best strategy. It's like, you roll over into gold and silver during these times, you let that wealth come in, then you start diversifying into the cryptocurrencies, the blockchain, because the cryptocurrency blockchain, yes, it's a good investment now and we're holding bags, but we're still a little futuristic out. But we already, like you said, have silver being pulled from all of these countries. They can't get their hands on it enough. And we've talked about this. I wonder if it's all going to MBS in Saudi Arabia with him building that smart city.
He needs it too. Yeah. I mean, they all do. And that's the thing. because it's going to Switzerland. And one of the biggest hubs is over the United Arab Emirates and all of them over there. They're the ones running a lot of the gold and silver. So this is big. And the way I look at it is this: probability is statistics. It's probabilities. And people know me by now. And if they don't, I had 5 financial licenses.
Yep.
I'm an accredited asset management specialist. I worked at AG Edwards. I get it. I was an advisor. They're pigeonholing you into an idea, make 10, 12, 14% income. Life is great. Even though inflation is double digits still, they're just not telling you. But right now, probability wise, over the next 2 years, easy, silver is going to outperform the stock market, hands down. It's already up this year tremendously over the stock market. Stock market's down almost 15%. Yep. And if it goes down to 40, you'll see what I mean. But over the next 2 years, we're probably going to outperform. So protect yourself, roll over a decent amount of that into physical metal, get it owned in your IRA, retirement accounts, cash, whatever, home, in a depository private account. Sit in gold and silver over the next couple years. You're going to do well. You're probably going to outperform the stock market. And then when this all clears out and we see if we avoid the big one, and then we do start booming again, be careful for the dead cat bounce. Yep. But if we do, then you just sell off at a profit and go back into the system.
Amen. I want to read you this real quick. It just reminded me before we went live. No, we're not live, but before we recorded this, I wanted to just show you. This came in today, and a woman said that, let's see, she says, I brought you up in one of my lives today. That's why I said the live. And she said during the live, she goes, we're doing business with Terry and Cornerstone as we speak right now. She said, excellent organization. And my husband and I are coming to the boot camp that we're doing. But she just was saying how amazing you guys were. So I just wanted to tell you that.
I think I know who that is, actually.
Really?
Yeah, she texted me that she was coming to see you. And I said, have a great trip. And I didn't know, I know she was talking to, I think, Gary. I had talked to her a little bit, but she had a kind of a big picture scenario, but I didn't know that she was engaging in beginning, because I had told her you better get out of the market, go to cash. And if she did, she probably would have saved a pretty decent amount. And then I just kind of never got back into the conversation because I didn't want to know. But I am there for them, and I'm here as well, to discuss those more complicated scenarios.
And I get these messages all the time because you do deal with very complicated situations and not so complicated situations. Yeah. And every single one you guys solve and you guys get it done. And like you said, I love how you're always on top of every track and shipment and rollover and people's funds. Like, you take this very serious. I often say this is your ministry. It is your ministry. The kingdom wealth transfer and just kingdom building is your ministry. And you do it with such a spirit of excellence. So from everybody that's written to me, thank you, Terry. You are the most generous person I've ever met, but yet you're very private and you're kind and you're always willing to just be there for the people. So we just thank you.
Oh, I appreciate you for that. And that's I think the best thing for me, because I could have gone in so many different directions in this industry, and God made it just real clear. You're going to work with my people and get them ready. And it's probably cost me significantly by not going into the secular world. But I'm relying on what he told me to do. And he said, just stay here, stay in this narrow lane and just look after my people. But a lot of them still haven't really woken up. But maybe they will. I
think they're about to. I think you're about to get very popular, because this is getting very dicey. It's getting very real to people, and they're starting to really feel the heat, I think. And we'll have to see how it goes. If you guys are interested, and this is the first time you've ever seen Terry, all of his information is always in my descriptions, always, because he's been such a popular resource and hedging people's retirements and their funds and just helping them. So he's always down at the bottom. And Terry, before I let you go today, because I want to honor your time, we're at about an hour. Is there anything that you can recommend for someone that's in a loss right now in their 401ks? Like, would it still be okay to call you and be like, should I roll it over? Should I wait for the dead cat bounce? What would you say to them today if they're stressing?
It's a difficult situation because it could go down another 20%. We don't know. If it goes down another 20% and breaks into the 20s, you're going to really be in trouble. If you're taking somewhat of a loss, you're buying silver at a discount right now because it's sold off a little bit. As it moves up, you're going to probably outperform owning the silver than you would have keeping it in the market. So you'll have made that loss back and then some beyond. So I would think you'd probably be in pretty good shape.
That's a good idea. Just learn when to cut the losses into an asset that is just going to rise anyway, where another fall.
Yeah, because globally, the demand is ferocious. The fight behind the scenes is unbelievable. And one day it's going to break, and it's going to break soon.
Well, yeah, and it's already happening, and it's even prophetic, and we're seeing it. So, well, Terry, thank you so much for your time. Thank you. And
thank you, Lauren. God bless you.
Yeah, tell your family I said hello. One of these days, the families are going to meet. I think you and my husband are going to get along great. And me and your wife would get along great. And I think that would be great.
We look forward to that. We really do. We look forward to that. I think it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, have a good one, and I will talk to you soon.
With all of the recent changes in the political and financial markets, there has never been a better time than right now to invest in silver and gold. When governments simply print billions of dollars in paper money in hopes of solving financial shortfalls, you know that it is time to buy and hold assets of true and lasting value. Free information is available to you right now by calling 888-747-3309. Whether you are a new investor or you're interested in preserving the value of your retirement accounts, we make it easy for you to make smart decisions for your financial future. The specialists at Cornerstone are here to serve you, work to satisfy your retirement goals, and communicate with respect. Call us right now at 888-747-3309. That's 888-747-3309. Or visit us online at cornerstoneassetmetals.com. That's cornerstoneassetmetals.com.